99% of all maternal deaths occur in developing countries.
Welcome to The Human Factor, the show where we explore social change through the eyes of social entrepreneurs. My name is Melanie Roussin, her name is Erin McKay, and we are your hosts. Erin and I met when working in the non-for-profit sector, and we became really curious about social change and the people behind it. So we've created the Human Factor podcast. If you're starting or running a social enterprise, or if you're just interested about how does social change happen, or simply to hear some stories of good, then you're in the right place. Last night, we watched 25 top emerging social entrepreneurs come together for a night of pitches and celebration. Today, we're chatting to the winners of last night's People's Choice Award and my good friends, Melita and Jonathan Shirley, co-founder and director of Mammojo. Mammojo is a social enterprise that creates breastfeeding-friendly activewear for new mothers. Mammojo's goal is to empower new mothers, but also to tackle global maternal and infant mortality rates. So for every other place, Mammojo provides a birth kit to the world's most vulnerable women, so they may also have a clean and safe birth. So hi, Melita and Johnny. Thanks for joining us on The Human Factor.
Thanks for having us.
Great to be here.
Please fill in the gap in my intro and tell us how you would describe yourself, but also what sparked Mammojo.
So I guess in terms of sparking Mammojo, we are the parents to 3 beautiful young boys, and taking it back 5 years to when our first boy was born, I was really struggling with getting back into exercise, something that could really help me from a sanity perspective, you know, and with life as a newborn, was completely impossible for me. I was unable to find any sort of breastfeeding-friendly activewear, and thought this was ridiculous. So talking to other mums, realised that I wasn't alone in this, and that a lot of mums who, you know, wanted to live an active life and get out and about with their babies, were really, struggling with the same sort of thing. So I guess that's sort of the initial spark for Mammojo. But then we had
an incredible run of lucky events, probably about 2 years after Lewis. Lewis was about 2 or 3 years old, and I was cycling to work one day, and a car pulled out in front of me, and I went over the back of the car, broke my neck and my arm. But I was extremely lucky. I was one of less than 10% of people that had no neurological damage. But that was just the beginning of this particular part of our story. And the day we got home from hospital, we were literally home probably about an hour, and a storm came through Brisbane with a lot of lightning storm, and it hit our house, and our house went on fire. So we spent the next 20 minutes trying to put it out, and we eventually kept it down enough until the fire brigade got there. And then the third very lucky thing was our second son, Jack, was born with a skull condition where the plates had fused prematurely while he was inside Melita's womb, and exactly around the same time as the house was hit by lightning, and I broke my neck. So he was born 4 months later in April, and we brought him to Texas when he was 5 weeks old for some pioneering neurosurgery, and that was a great success. So like we were really counting our lucky chickens, and we thought, well, what are we going to do with our good fortune? We've got it. You know, we were both working in kind of corporate roles at the time. I was recovering from a broken neck, but my role was there, and they were supporting me as I got back to work. And we said, this is, we've got to take this chance to, get off the corporate hamster wheel, so to speak, and take a bit more control of our lives, and also, try and give back, because we had been so fortunate, and we know, it could have ended up quite differently for us, and it often does for lots of people for lots of reasons around the world. And we really wanted to create something that had a positive impact on the world, and something that was sustainable, and something that we could be proud to be part of.
Awesome. That's an amazing story. I when I first heard it, I was like, what? How can all of those things happen at once? But raising,
Crazy.
yeah, raising 3 kids and building a social enterprise, I can't even fathom how you guys go about doing that. And I'm sure that no one day is the same. But if you can, try and tell us what a typical day looks like for you guys.
Well, usually I get up early with the 2 older ones, get them ready for kindy. And Melita, unfortunately, with Hugo, who's 9 months old, he's still one of those beautiful little baby parasites that's requires a lot of feeding and occupies mum quite a lot at night time. So I get up, get the boys off to kindy, then we come back, and our day probably starts work wise. After the boys are away about 9:30. And then it's a matter of, what's the priority for that day. If we're organized, we have it set the day before, and we know what we need to attack, and whether it's a priority for me to address or whether it's for Melita. And that's how we kind of manage our time.
So I guess it's not really a typical day for us. Every day looks totally different, but we do try and juggle as best we can. And I think it's great if you can have a good handle on what priorities, you do have, just as Johnny mentioned, so that you can jump in when you do get those elusive few minutes to actually work in between feeds and, pickups and that sort of thing. So, yes, to answer your question, there is no typical day, really.
That's very fair enough. So we talked a little bit in the intro about how you're playing a role in helping women in developing countries to have a clean and safe birth. So what I wonder is, what is the one thing that most people don't know or understand about the challenges new mothers face in giving birth in developing countries, but also the role of birth kits have in ensuring a clean and safe birth? Because before last night, I wasn't sure what an actual birth kit was. So if you want to take us through that.
Yeah, sure. And I should mention as well, I guess the impetus behind the support for these maternal and infant health initiatives really stemmed from a couple of things. But initially, I had a really traumatic first birth experience and started becoming really interested in the birth experiences of women around the world. And I was really shocked when I found out that had my labour occurred in a developing country, that I wouldn't have survived. That really struck home that, wow, this is, these women they have very, very limited access to medical care. And the things that are actually causing death, and it is a very large number, 300,000 women are dying preventably from childbirth every year. It's not the large scale things. It's giving birth on an unhygienic surface and contracting a secondary infection. It's cutting the umbilical cord with something that's not sterile and, contracting sepsis. It's things like that. So I don't think it's things that people realize it might be. And these are completely preventable things. So the role of the birth kit is really quite incredible, a really powerful little packet of contents. And we're talking about a plastic sheet to put between, the mother and the surface that she's giving birth on, a sterile blade so that they can cut the umbilical cord cleanly and hygienically, gloves for the birth attendant. As you know, there's, other conditions very prevalent, and they don't want to, pass those on to the birth attendant. There's soap, very, very simple items that have an absolutely amazing, make an amazing difference to women in developing countries. And gauze to wipe, the baby's eyes. And one of the other big problems is that using unhygienic, materials to wipe babies' eyes can actually cause blindness and sometimes even death. So they're these incredible little tiny kits that have the power to save lives. So we're really proud that every time a purchase is made from our Lactiveware range, we donate one of these birthing kits to a vulnerable woman so that she can have a clean and safe birth.
Well, I tell you, I think I like to think I know a fair bit about women's health in developing countries, but I had no idea that wiping the baby's eyes could like with an unhygienic material could cause blindness. I had no idea. So thank you so much for sharing that. And last night we heard your awesome pitch that won you guys the People's Choice Award at the Impact Boom event. So we would love for you guys to share what lessons you've learnt that you can share with our listeners about preparing for a pitch like that.
Start early. We've been preparing that pitch over the last couple of weeks, and it's gone through a couple of iterations. And we prepared it to different panels. I got feedback from lots of people. And when you're pitching to different people all the time, you start to get conflicting feedback. And at some point, you've got to, take on board what everybody's saying, but then make sure that it reflects your essence and your brand's essence and what, your message. That's the most important thing. Unfortunately, it took us till the day before we finally got that nailed down. So the last day we were practicing, just walking around the house. Our 9-month-old was like looking at us, and he was mumbling the same words back at us almost. I think we said it so many times. But thankfully it stuck. But yeah, it's just as much preparation as you can, but trying to get the message right, I think, as early as possible.
Yeah, and I think it really comes back to just sort of, being true to yourself and knowing who you are and what you're trying to do, and focusing less on the script, I suppose. Back to your essence is a really kind of important message. But I also think that, pitching can be very scary, but I think it's a good mindset to have that everybody here wants to see you do well. I think that makes you feel a lot more confident in delivery, just with that simple kind of mindset.
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love how you guys brought a little bit of your personality as well in the pitch, so a little bit of humor, which is very much, how I would describe you guys. So we're really well done about last night. We felt really energized by your pitch and the pitch of the other social entrepreneurs as well. So what would you say has been the biggest challenge of building Mammojo as a social enterprise rather than a typical woman clothing brand, if you like?
I think building it as a social enterprise makes it easier for us in a sense, because it's aligned with what we're trying to achieve. We believe that business should be doing good and has a responsibility to do good and can do good. So setting it up as a social enterprise really was a no-brainer. It's we wanted something that was going to be strong and sustainable in its own right, but we wanted something that was going to have a positive impact. So more and more, I think, generally, smaller and larger businesses are starting to realize that, and we think that's the way of the future.
Did you have anything to add, Melita?
I don't think so. I mean, I guess, there's always the typical kind of challenges, but for me, they've really come more on, the business side of it and the startup side of it than the social enterprise element, I should say. I guess the only challenge is often it can be quite a lonely, isolating experience when you're really trying to get something off the ground. And it's great if you can get a support network around you to kind of keep you energized and keep you focused, and that you can bounce things off. But I think that applies for, businesses in general, not just social enterprises.
Absolutely. And that's something we've heard from other guests before, that it can be a bit of a lonely road. So tell us about the greatest idea that you had to date. Tell us how you took that aha moment of thinking, this is what we need to do. I need to create some lactive wear. I love that name, by the way. And you took it from an idea to actually making it happen.
Greatest idea. Oh, let's have 3 kids, start a business. Yeah, that'll be really good. Goodness, what's our greatest idea?
Well, if you're referring to like the idea of the lactivewear, then we didn't have a background necessarily in fashion, although Melita has quite an interest, I have to admit. I'm an engineer. Melita's comms and a journalist, and we didn't really know where to start. So we did a bit of research. We worked with QUT, Creative Enterprise Australia, and they really helped us get our our range started. They put down our ideas on paper, helped turn them into patterns and into designs, and that's how how we got there. I guess when you're starting a business, you're never going to have all the skills that you need, and it's important to find areas where you're weak, to find mentors and to find people that are able to help you. And we, QUT CEA was a good fit for us because we knew we could trust them, and that worked out really well for us.
You've both had a very impressive journey from basically the corporate world. So, Johnny, you just mentioned that you were an engineer, and obviously I've worked previously with Melita in com. So from the corporate world to becoming social entrepreneurs. And what I'm curious about is tell us how you've made that transition happen for you. And also, what advice would you have for other aspiring social entrepreneur, and perhaps especially if they're considering an accelerator program like you've just completed?
Yeah, I think, for us, or for me, and for us, we, had those three unbelievably, striking wake-up calls that forced us to reassess what we were doing. And that made the jump a lot easier in some ways. Some days if there's an idea bubbling along in the back of your mind, it might sit there. And in a lot of ways, ideas are, they're not worth anything until you actually do something with them. And I think, that making that leap was the hard bit for us. I guess fortunately we had those wake up calls. And it's not an easy transition, where, you go from a reasonably well paid corporate type role and to a startup where there's no, you're not getting paid at all. So, initially. So, that is a tricky transition, I guess. To reiterate what Melita said before, is like surrounding yourself with like-minded people. I did a course early on. If you've heard of Seth Godin, I did an alt MBA that he runs. I was lucky enough to get in on that, and that really gave me the confidence to go and make something happen, to go and make a change in the world.
I guess in terms of the advice for other social entrepreneurs maybe considering an accelerator, I'd just say absolutely go for it. I mean, we've had the pleasure of being part of the Impact Boom Elevate Plus Social Enterprise Accelerator program, and that has really, really helped us. Tom Allen, the CEO of Impact Boom, is a wonderful guy who is really passionate about seeing social enterprises, succeed commercially to maximise that social impact. And I think it just helps. I mean, we had access to some incredible industry experts, speakers who came in and could really inspire you and motivate you and also give you some good advice, so that you don't have to make some of the same mistakes and the pitfalls that are, common with startups and perhaps in the social enterprise space. So absolutely, if you get the opportunity, we feel very, very fortunate to have been selected for that accelerator, and I think that it's definitely been an incredibly valuable tool for us.
And I'll just add, if we had not got into that accelerator, there are other avenues of gaining some of the skills or learning about some of the pitfalls. For example, the QUT Collider program is also running some public sessions at the moment with all the experts that they have on board. I went to one of during the week, and that was quite beneficial also. So just have a look around. There's a lot of different pitch sessions. There's a lot of valuable stuff happening. But yes, I also reiterate again what Melita said. We were very fortunate to be part of the Impact Boom, and it certainly made a material difference to our business.
That's really good to hear. And so at what stage does an aspiring social entrepreneur has to be in order to join a program like that?
They can be at any stage at all, actually. So there was ideas, people with a concept. There were people there maybe with an MVP, right through to businesses like ours that have been, operating for 12 months. So it was covered a whole gamut. And I think that was actually quite useful for all of us because, when you're at different stages, you can benefit, from different components, I suppose.
Absolutely. I wish I had a good idea that I could go for accelerating.
The human factor is a pretty good idea.
Thank you. We'll send you a check later. So what would you say has been your biggest takeaway from that program?
Oh, gosh, there's so much. I mean, I think that there is a tendency when you're starting a business or starting a social enterprise that you have to have it all sorted out first. And I think that, the accelerator program has sort of reiterated to me that you don't have to know everything. You can actually start small. And that was, something that we probably could have benefited from. You don't have to be everything to everybody. If you've got a good idea, trust yourself, back yourself, give it a go, start small. The sooner that you can get something out and start getting feedback from your customers or whoever it is, your clients, the better. So start small, start somewhere.
Awesome. And what would you say is going to be your biggest challenge in the next 12 months for Mammojo?
I think exposure, pardon the pun, is our biggest challenge. So, we get great feedback from our customers. We're starting to get good traction in the marketplace. Our biggest challenge is really just having people know about us. So it's really nice when you go somewhere and someone asks what you do and you tell them about Mammojo and they go, "Oh, I've heard of you." And you think, "Oh, hooray, the system's working." But, as a social enterprise, you are cash constrained. And so you've got to look for really clever, innovative exposure opportunities that don't cost a huge amount of money. And that is a big challenge. So I think that will probably continue to be our biggest challenge for a while.
Yeah, like cash is like oxygen for the business. And, I think that's another good reason to start small and start getting feedback from your customers. Our cash relies on us getting our name out there and making sales. And thankfully we're starting to build a bit of momentum. But we just need to make sure we continue on that trajectory.
Tell all your friends, pregnant ladies, breastfeeding ladies, we're here for you.
I got a few of those at the moment, our friends who are all having babies. I'm at that stage. So we are coming to the end of the interview, and for our final questions, we always like to just do a bit of a lightning round. So just tell us the first thing that comes to mind. And our first question is, what are you most excited about today?
Coffee. It was a late night last night.
Yeah. And 3 kids at home, yes?
Yeah.
What was the one thing that was holding you back from starting Mammojo?
Corporate hamster wheel.
Yeah, feeling safe.
Love it. What is the best advice that you've ever received?
In the words of the great Seth Godin, go make something happen.
Love it. And sadly, it is time to wrap up. And if you could leave our listeners a few words that they would really take to heart today, what would you share with them?
I would say trust yourself, trust your instincts, and work hard, be good to your mother.
So just as a little shout out, tell us the best way to reach out to you, but also support Mammojo on your beautiful online store.
So you can go to mammojo.com, which is MAMMOJO. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter.
Google Activewear.
Yeah, or Google Activewear and you should find us.
Awesome. Is there stores that people, if they're going for a real store, is there anywhere that they can find Mammojo?
We have a couple of they're mostly online stores, but we also have Revive Physiotherapy in Ashgrove, which stocks some of our stuff. So mummies in Brisbane can actually go along and try them on for themselves.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast and thank you for joining us on The Human Factor.
Thank you so much for having us.
It's been a pleasure.
The goodie bag. So last night we went to the Elevate Plus pitch night from Impact Boom, and we saw presentations from 14 social enterprises in various stages of life. And so for this section of the goodie bag, we are going to be putting in 2 organisations that we saw pitch. So without further ado, what is going in the goodie bag from you, Mel?
Thank you, Erin. So mine is is called Chat for 10. And the way I understand it, it's actually a pilot program. So it's not quite a thing yet, but they're looking at scaling that to an app. But the way they've done that is they've done this pilot program to connect refugees to people in the community to learn a language. So the way it works is that I believe the pilot program was done on WhatsApp. And the way it works is that so the person is connected to a partner in the community. They choose a topic, and then they have 10 messages on that topic, and then they are matched to another partner and then learn languages that way. And I really connected with that because I came to this country in Australia speaking another language, French, and it's something that I would have liked to do, have a bit of kind of a practice run, because it is the best way to learn a language. I mean, you can learn through you can listen to an app or something like that, but you really have to learn the language from the local people. So I really like this idea. And I think if you speak the language and you take that kind of barrier out, you can really create really fun opportunities and maybe even create some connection. So I thought that was a really neat way to address that problems.
Awesome. So the group that I am choosing to put in the goodie bag is called Yaku Latin Goods. And basically they're very much the original sort of model for social enterprise, which is selling a product and with a percentage of the proceeds going to fund social change programs. And so in this case, they import and trade ethical goods from Latin America in Australia, and then a portion of their profits support education and health programs for girls in Peru and Myanmar. And so one of the products we tried last night from them was Picari Dark Chocolate. It's vegan, gluten-free, so of course ticks mine and Mel's boxes. And I tried the passion fruit one last night, and it was absolutely gorgeous and stunning, and it gave me all the good warm and fuzzies because I knew that while I was feeding my addiction to chocolate, I was doing it to support girls in developing countries.
Chocolate for good, love it.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please hit subscribe and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Or you can head over to our page, The Human Factor Podcast, on Instagram or Facebook and join the conversation. Tell us what you thought of this episode, and if you have thoughts or insights to add to anything Melita and Johnny said today, leave us a comment.
Or you can tweet us at _Human Factor or visit the website humanfactor.com.au, and you can leave us a message. This show is just one part of a community that really wants to affect and grow social change. If you have a topic or a person you'd like us to feature on the show, please let us know.
You're all awesome, and we'll see you next time.